Okay, well, it's after 7 o'clock. Can I welcome everyone to the July FES meeting? Are there any apologies?
Yeah, I've had apologies from Councillor Wildman.
Can I also give apologies for Emma and Johnny?
Okay, are there any declarations of interest? No. Item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of June. Would someone like to move them or any comments on them?
I just had one question, which was on number 16, where you said you're going to find out where Pendle Borough Council sent the email about the precepts in the future. Did you have any success?
Yes, I did. They forwarded me the original email and ensured that, well, they said that they'd added me to the group, so I should receive future emails. But yeah, it was obviously that as of next year, it will be sent quarterly rather than annually.
Good. Okay, I'm happy to move the minutes.
Those in favour? Okay. Okay. Public forum, there is no one here and there's no one joined online, has there? No. Item 6, which is for exclusion of the public, which just applies to the last two items, which are items 17 and 18, because it involves personal information from individuals. Moving on to item 7, the financial update. We might as well take A, B and C together, whichever anyone wants to speak on.
I will just explain before we start, because the outside accountant has been on holiday, so it's been someone else been covering, and also they had a holiday in between. So the date that we'd originally put was the 20th. However, he then came in after his holiday and started updating before I'd actually done the reports. So that led to quite a substantial delay with the financial reports, but now they are up to the 30th of June. So
I've just got a few questions for you. On the income side, events. Our events income of 21,000 seems to be higher than our budget of 17. Did we make any particular extra sponsorship deals or something? Or
it's mainly just due to more stall income. The events are proving to be quite popular, and I think so we're getting quite a lot of traders wanting to trade. Also, we do have the makers and bakers markets, but obviously some of that income is going to the market, so it's still in the accounts at the moment, but will be reappropriated once that they're finished. So,
and I'm sure we'll come on to the town hall maintenance a bit later. I just wondered our plans for the roof later on, but we'll cover that later. And on the spending for things like bus shelters and benches, whatever, obviously we've not spent a great deal of it so far. Do we have plans, do you know, to do things?
Well, obviously it was brought up at the last full council meeting that there have been quite a few complaints about bus shelters in particular. Some of them aren't ours, they are prime site, but obviously we do need to look. I think it was suggested that we do an audit of bus shelters and report any damage that needs to be reported to the, if they're not ours, to the appropriate people, and obviously we need to get anything addressed that we are responsible for. So I would anticipate increased expenditure in both benches and bush shelters.
Just on the bush shelters, I think the ones that are causing the most complaints, I think, are the one outside the municipal hall and the one that's outside Farm Foods, which are the Prime Site Global, whatever they're calling themselves this week. They, up until, trying to think, 2 or 3 years ago, did look after them, and you could often see people changing the posters and cleaning them and what have you. That seems to have stopped. I think they now fall into the county's pocket, purview rather than pocket, because they took over all what they call the quality bus route, which is the main line and the little bit on Skipton Road. So maybe we should make inquiries of the county as to whether they, because if they think we're doing it or Pendle are doing it, it may be that no one's actually told Global to come and do them. Because there was talk of, must be 5 or more years ago, of them being replaced, and the ad, that shows how long ago it is. They started life as ad shelters, that they were sort of abandoning them. So maybe that's worth an inquiry to whoever Mr. or Mrs. Bush Shelters is at Preston.
I can confirm that after the last full council, we have issued purchase orders for some work to the bus stop opposite, the Stone bus stop. And we've also asked for the bench to be replaced.
It's been done.
Has it been done now? Yeah, we have had an invoice through. And I'd put it on Eugene's desk to check that the work had been completed, but yeah.
Don't want to labour the point, but that's the bench that's on that side, the other side of the road. Yeah,
In front of Stanley Villas, yeah, that's been done yesterday, and it's a new bench.
One extra one for you on benches, by the way. Cone area this week will be covering. There was an item we had about the benches by Richmond Court, and I think they'll obviously be coming Cone Town Council's way, but actually they're being bought by Pearl. So some free benches to be transferred.
Just going back to bush shelters a minute, the way I understand it, and I'm 99% sure I'm right, is when the guy from county spoke to me about it, because he rang me once or twice at home, because he was really keen on wanting to transfer the bush shelters back from us. And the ones that we had, we transferred back to Pendle, which then went to LCC. And county were also trying to get the ones back that were Prime Site. Prime Site were reluctant to let them go back, even though they were out of contract because the contract had expired. They were reluctant to let them go back because what they could see were someone else were going to use them bush shelters for advertising and compete with them, which they didn't like, which is understandable. But as far as I can make out, reading between the lines, is Prime Site used to change the posters quite frequently in those bush shelters. That's when the bush shelters were in good condition. And they used to make a lot of money out of them. But over the years, as the bush shelters got more and more needing maintenance doing on them and becoming more and more clapped out, they sort of walked away from them, and now they don't even wash them, paint them, put a poster in. They don't do anything with them. They're just stuck there, but they don't want anybody else to have them, and that's so. Really, county needs to say, get on to them and say we're having them back. End of. Somebody needs to move them, not the bush shelters. LCC. Because if it's a bush shelter, it's a bush shelter, and they just think all bush shelters at councils, and they think they're all the same councils, don't they? And it's understandable.
Do you want me to move acceptance of these reports?
If you would.
I will.
Is that all for all three?
All three, yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
The seconded, So can we vote for all three? Thank you. Item 8, the investment report. I'm under the impression that's going straight to full council in 2 weeks, is it? Yeah. Can we all note that?
Okay.
Item 9, the stained glass window. I'm not sure if everyone knows the whole details of this. Did you want to try and sort of explain it, or do you want me to try and do it?
Well, you can join in afterwards. Yeah, I think it was when we did the event for the Jubilee and we did the tours of the town hall. Jeff Cranby was doing the tours, and it was brought up in the tours, I think, that he was telling people about the stained glass window above the main entrance door. And what you can see is the shield shape, but with nothing inside it. Obviously to represent the crest, and so he's actually asked if we could look into getting something obviously put in there. So we did actually approach. There were 2 companies that we found that we could approach. They were local enough to do it. Only one of them actually wanted to quote for the work, which is mainly why it's on this. Basically, to go with the one quote that we did have, which was very reasonable. They did come to the town hall to have a look at it. And they said because it's a double pane, they could get away with removing one and leave the other one in, so we wouldn't have to bother about that. And he did say, though, he wouldn't have been able to do the outside details, so all the leaves and the sort of around the outside, because it's so small. You just wouldn't be able to see it anyway. So basically, the shield shape is there. So we suggested that he just put the detail into the shield. So he has quoted for that work, and it's come back at about £1,800, which I think is very reasonable. I think, yes, they're going to take it, and then obviously, paint it on. It is work that he has done this kind of work before, and they seem to have a good rating. So yes. Yes. Well, there are actually on the stained glass window. There's 3 ribbons, so 2 either side and 1 in the middle. So we thought we could put wee long in in those. So. But yeah, so because we only got 1 quote for the work and it is over £1,000, we brought it to this just to get approval to go with the 1 quote that we've got.
Chair, I wish I could remember the story that Jeff Cranby told about. It was all to do with, I've forgotten his name. The bloke, anyway. The opening was coming, so they had to put in what they'd got, and then they couldn't be bothered or wouldn't pay for the thing to put on. So I think, about 120 years late, but it's something that we ought to do, and I'll move that we go with the one quote on the grounds that it's a specialised specialised skill, and we've tried everybody, and this is the only one that is able to do the work.
Yeah, I'll support that then. I suggest we get Jeff in for an opening ceremony as well. Get him back.
It was Sam Catlow.
I mean, it is fortunate in a sense. I mean, part of the price is because with the height of the doorway, because it's right over the stone steps, they've got to scaffold it up inside to do the work. But what we are fortunate with it being double skinned, it can take the inner window out to go take it away and do the work, and not actually as need to have a boarding up session to have it boarded up, because the other one will stay in. And I think it's like Howard said, it's 120 years late, but I think it's certainly worth doing it and have it finished. And then when we've got it done, like you've suggested, we can get Jeff to come back and have some sort of a presentation that it's been done.
Just to confirm, it's an inside window. There's 2 windows downstairs, and it takes away the inside one, it's painted on there. So it's a protection against rain.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
But those in favour? Okay. Item 10, bench located on Cockhill Lane. I take it this is the one. Right where the road comes up from the forward and the road bends round, and we've had problems with it before. Someone wanted it moving because kids were jumping on it to climb over the wall into the quarry. Am I right? Right.
If it was only the children climbing over the wall, you'd just say, well, you could move it across the road. But then again, even if you moved it anywhere, it's not that difficult a wall to climb over, really.
No,
so anybody wanting to is easily going to get in. So that shouldn't really form part of this. I think we've obviously got a local resident complaining about antisocial behaviour, gangs of children. They're obviously attracted to the golf club. There's lots of places to hide and things like that. So, but it is, unfortunately, it's a fantastically popular bench. I myself have sat on it several times in my life. So it is a good bench, really, and it's cemented in, as you say. So I think we've probably got to live with this and try and fight the antisocial behaviour. Sorry.
I think, yeah, I mean, the problem isn't so much the bench as the antisocial behaviour, and as you say, to climb over the wall is dead easy. I mean, particularly when they managed to get on what was the Northern Whisper, and they've been on Peter Birtwistle House, we found out last night. So a stone wall's not going to stop them. I think we should ask the Community Safety Partnership to put this on their list of hotspots to look at and have a good old, well, they won't walk up there nowadays, will they? But they can maybe ride past once or twice.
I believe it might have already been that way. So I think one of the people who were CC'd into the email was Jerry Stanford, and I think he has something to do with that committee.
I'll take it as an action and raise it at CSP on Thursday, because I'll be going to that. So I'll make sure it's there and make sure Jerry knows about it. And yeah, we'll get. I think it's a case of as well making sure the local resident knows that it's been reported, and therefore it's got a bit more profile. And maybe then encouraging them to call the police as well, if there is particular groups.
The problem is with it in that location, because from there onwards, the road's a bit windy, so you don't really want to be sat on side of the road where you're on a sort of blind bend. So there isn't really anywhere, if it gets used quite a lot, there isn't anywhere else suitable to move it to, is there?
No.
So there's only really two choices, isn't there? It either has to stay where it is and you solve the other problem, or it goes altogether. And I'd be
Yeah.
reluctant to lose the bench if it's well used.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And it may not solve the problem, because I'm sure that
Thus it don't work.
the fact that the wall will still be there and the forward is still there, which I think is by far the bigger attraction than the bench.
Yeah. So we don't really need to approve anything on that if you're going to take it back on Thursday, do we? 11, VAT registration.
Yeah, this is was put on for an update, as we thought by now we would have heard back from them. However, they have said it can take up to 30 days. And if you ring to chase, it's a case of if it hasn't been the 30 days, then they won't actually do anything. So we are still waiting for, and actually I will take the next one because this is also linked to this, because we're waiting to supply our VAT number in order for the purchase to go through. So because we haven't got that yet, we haven't got the van yet either. So that's another thing.
One thought though, when you apply for a VAT registration, you give them a date you want it to be effective from. So when they do the yes or no, then they'll do the yes with effect from that date. So you can, in a way, I mean, they're not like to turn us down, are they? Because people who register for VAT, the government love it because obviously it gets in revenues. So I think it's one of those ones whereby we might, if it drags on much longer, then you could say, well, you've had your 30 days or whatever. We presumably could start recording VAT transactions now anyway, because we've got an effective date. What date did you pick again?
1st of April.
Oh, well, I don't know. Yeah.
Financial year start.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
I think, and you could ask Katie when she's back, she'd probably know the answer straight away. I think that if we bought the van now and we've applied for VAT registration, backdated to the 1st of April this year, we will still be able to claim that VAT back.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You're also often allowed a few transactions in the date beforehand as well. So, but yeah, I think 1st of April is a good clean date to use it from, and therefore even the transaction we book now, for example, you could switch the VAT on that.
I think the main problem with the van purchase is because the deal that we went for it was a business deal, and so they are wanting our VAT number in order to give us the discount that applies. So.
Well, I think they'll come to some arrangement rather than lose the deal, but we'll have to see, won't we? Right, so that's 11 and 12 gone, both for information. Item 13, Alkin Courts Working Group. Did Eugene leave you any notes on it?
No.
Well, the group were of the opinion that the event, first of all, the event on Sunday was quite successful. And in particular, Dorothy asked if we could have an event like that annually on Park. I said on this occasion, for this particular one, it was sort of a friends group orientated event, and FES had found the money to pay for it from outside the event system. I said if she wanted to have one annually on there, an event run by the events committee, providing the events committee found it within their budget, I didn't have a problem with it at all, because we've got a good park sat there and it does want using. But with the event being on a Sunday, I think that was ideal, because if we were to only have events on park on a Sunday, when mainly most town centres close down anyway, we're not taking anything away from them on a weekend. So, and I think that would also be helpful. With regard to the walled garden at the top of the park, there has some work been done on it recently. Some volunteers been up and done a bit of work on one bed, but there's a lot of work to do there long term. And your Sarah did mention that for places like the park, there were grants of up to 30,000 available, but it couldn't be a town council that applied for the grant. It had to be some other community organisation, which the Friends group, once that's back up and running, would fall into that category, and they could apply for the grant. In order to apply for the grant, we would have to have a model, a plan of what we wanted to do, because obviously when you apply for the grant, they're going to say to you, well, if we give you the grant, what are you going to do? So we need a professional plan of what we want to do. And I think we also need some advice on what is the best thing to grow in there, what sort of beds to have in there. And I do really think we need some advice anyway. And it was suggested that we could get a professional company to do the plan for us, of which we thought might be about 3,000. And I said, well, rather than have to come back for some more money if it's a little bit more, why don't we allocate, say, £4,000 to get someone to professionally do a proper model as to what to do with that top area of the park for us, and possibly some more work on park as well. Because if we don't do that, we won't qualify for the grant anyway. So I would like to move that we put £4,000 on one side out of the Alkin Courts earmark reserve, and that we appoint someone to do the work for us, and then we apply for the grant if someone would like to second that.
Just a couple of quick questions around that then. Obviously, the Friends of Alkin Coates group does technically still exist, even though there's no member or not many members, or?
It exists. It was getting run down a bit before the 2-year lockdown, because like a lot of other organisations like that, you tend to people get older and they drop out, and for some reason you don't recruit anybody coming in at the other end who's of a younger age. So it was going down in numbers. There's no denying that. And then the lockdown sort of hit us. More or less at the time we took over the park. Mm-hmm. So the town council have never actually run and overseen the working group. It hasn't actually met since we took over the parks, because we took over the parks in 1st of January, didn't we? And we sort of got locked down in March, April. So we'd done it a couple of months. Okay. We didn't even have a meeting that we organised. So it has fallen apart during those 2 years. There are, however, probably 6 or 7 members that we still have names and addresses for, who were the members of that working group the last time we met. And I think that what we really need to do is to convene a meeting of that Friends group with the existing vice chair and whoever other officers there were. And we need to invite those 6 or 7 people that we've got names and addresses for. One of them, for example, Howard being Carol Riley. And I think we've got to invite them. We also got, I think it was 7 names where someone filled a sheet in at the event on Sunday who would be interested in
Good.
joining it.
Yeah.
So we can equally write to them and suggest a date to have a new meeting to
Yeah, good.
try and get the working group up and running again. And I think before we end up with all of the summer having gone, I think we need to do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Do they have a constitution and a bank account and all that sort of thing? It's good for
They have,
grant applications.
They have a constitution, and as far as I know, there is just over £2,000 in the account.
I can update you on that. To be honest, they did actually close the account. The treasurer said she didn't want to have anything more to do with it, so closed the account and transferred it to the town council. So we have that money sat in a pot. So they
Is the figure about
basically
right? It's about 2,000, I think, isn't it?
it'll show it in here. to be honest.
Just thinking, if you think about our grant policy, for example, it talks about constituted bodies and bank accounts and how many signatories and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's
Well, yeah, we won't need to remove any signatories because the existing account's gone.
Yeah, it is £2,168. But they did transfer everything to us. Basically, we got handed a carrier bag with various things in it.
sounds like a Middle Eastern donation, doesn't it? Really? Yes, I think I support the idea of pressing ahead in almost like a professional way and say, let's get some outside help. I think Sarah's sort of horticultural lesson this afternoon to give you some ideas and what to do, what to consider, etc. You know, shrubbery here, herbaceous border there, etc., etc. I think if you give it the credibility of having a topographical survey done and then having some sort of designs drawn up as well, you know, how are you going to view things from front, middle, back, etc., first vista when you arrive, etc., then I think that would be quite good. And I think 4,000 should certainly cover it all, for sure. So yeah, I'll second the allocation of the monies for that.
I would mention as well, I was talking to the bid manager at the event, and she stated that actually Lancashire Adult Learning are doing some free horticultural sessions, I think, or courses. And I thought maybe we could look at that and obviously find out when they are and to try and attract people to volunteer for the park. They say, oh, you can, you know, there are these sessions if you want to learn how to, you know, and then approach it that way maybe.
I think that's right. That there are these sorts of, I mean, the Open Gate horticultural lot, they've got their garden up at the top of the King George V playing field, and they've got 1 or 2 incredibly knowledgeable volunteers up there. A lady called Mary, for example, she knows more than anybody. Who's an RHS volunteer, she is. And they've done 1 or 2 projects about getting people involved, both children and adults. And they've done, I think the one they did recently was giving you an idea of what you could do with a terraced house backyard. You know, how do you accommodate the bins? How do you grow things? How do you make it seasonal, etc.? So there were some good ideas there. So if you give them a bigger, almost like a blank canvas, really, with the wall garden, you've got something to say. Here's how to set up something, be it in a small corner of it or be it on a bigger scale. So yeah, I think there's plenty of people should be interested.
It's literally the back garden for the old hall, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
One question about the progressing with it. If we've allocated the monies, then are these sorts of services, do we need to tender it, or do we just get a couple of quotes, 3 quotes from relevant people?
Because it's under the 5,000, we would attempt to get 3 quotes.
If only to answer, there's not a lot we can do, is there? No.
I think garden design is something that we get more bids for, more quotes for potentially. Top of the survey, you need all the kit. We had one done recently. It was a reasonable amount of time to do it.
If you're aware of any contacts that may be interested, if you can forward them.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, so I'll second that.
Once we've got the Friends group up and running, if there were any tools we were short of, one member who was at the meeting this afternoon did offer to give us a contribution towards it, which was Darren. I don't think there were a right lot else said about anything, but I do agree with Dorothy. Park does want using, and if we restrict them to having our events on Park on a Sunday, then we're not treading on bid stores. I don't think. Not if we go for Sundays. If you go for Saturdays, you might be taking trade away from them. But if we went for Sundays, but there'd have to be a proviso. It'd need to be in summer when it's dry. We're not going to do that much damage to the park because of drainage. However, but in summer, I don't see a problem. And it's probably cheaper to put an event on there because probably Sunday's event didn't cost us a right lot. I don't know what it cost in total, but there were a bit of expense and there were some income. So it probably didn't cost us a right lot. And with it being our park anyway, which is insured, it's not like putting an event on in town centre where you have to have insurance because it's on someone else's land and all sorts of things, and you're working around someone else, and you don't have to work around asking them for permission. It's your park and you can do it when you want. I think it's a lot easier, and I think we should use it more. And it might attract more people into the park, and they might think, well, you know, I could spend a couple of afternoons a month helping here.
It was very good. I got a bit worried when he's what was it, Gia Falcon? He said I can go up to a mile away before it comes back.
3 miles.
Yeah, but it did come back. I think it's just the red kite that was the one that was a bit iffy.
I think you're right. It's all about showing people what the park's got in it.
Yes.
I think one of the things Sarah came away with was the idea that we could put another Cone Youth Action Group thing. We're going to do some ground green bowling. So
yeah, that were another thing that came out.
Try and get the young people interested in that one.
Sarah was interested in using the facilities that the Bowls Academy have.
Absolutely. It's all about just giving somebody. I mean, that's one of those things. One of the things we try to we do, for example, at the one we run in Trawden in the community centre there, they often take kit and go out on the recreation ground up above the village, and they'll play rounders and stuff, and they'll have a whale of a time, you know. And then if you think then about one of the early thoughts we thought then was if you're teaching people, they could perhaps bring their grandparent along, so you get grandparent, grandchild come along, and you know, bowling fits in quite nicely with that. So you know, it's a case of learning from various other inspirational adults.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
Because apart from just playing a normal bowling match on there, they have all sorts of equipment they can put on for various age groups, you know, with hoops and all sorts for them to bowl the ball under. And I think they would be really interested in it. I think it'd go down well. It's something different. Yeah. Because that's one thing that, particularly with people from SIAG, they like to be doing different things. Because if you're doing the same thing all the time, it becomes a bit monotonous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it might give them some variety. So
The
that
tennis
could work out
courts,
well as well.
tennis courts. We could possibly think of some tennis session or something. There's another thought.
We could do it, someone will organise it.
Hmm.
It's just a pity that someone won't take on the tennis courts like the Bowls Academy have taken on the bowling greens, but it's finding someone to do it, isn't it? It's just a pity we can't do that, because that would solve another problem.
Are they in good enough nick to use, or do they need a bit of work?
They need a bit of work, and I think, to be fair, we could probably have the work done if we thought they were going to be used appropriately, but there's no point having the work done if they're not going to be used properly.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a think. You never know.
Oh, and I complained about the weeds up either side of the tennis courts where you go up the steps and then along the straight bit, then up the other steps. And they're going to do something with that this week. There was a suggestion, a question asked as to whether we could have, well, it was mentioned that if we got some expensive plants in wall garden, they could be prone to theft, because they always are. We used to have a load of rose bushes in there and they all disappeared. The only way of stopping it really is CCTV, which I think would be quite expensive. But if there were a line of sight from up there to bounce the signal off the one at the bottom down at the pavilion, it could be done. I don't know what the cost would be, so I asked Eugene to find us a price at least anyway, off Grant Fen. But we could bounce the signal off there, but instead of putting mains in, I can't see any reason why we couldn't run them off solar panels, because all that camera system going over from Barrowford to Gisborne on that average speed thing, it's all run on solar panels.
Yeah.
I mean, they're better now than they used to be, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than that, I think that's about all we discussed, unless anyone's any questions about anything.
No, that's fine.
I would just say, with regard to CCTV, we are still waiting for Grant Fen to sort the camera out at King George's. We've also had 2 cameras down at the Muni, and they're supposed to be, the cameras are continually dropping out, and we don't know why. So we've obviously raised this with Grant Fen, and they were going to do a full audit of all the kit we have and the signal strength, etc. Although we haven't heard anything from them, I would be very reluctant to give them another project until they've actually sorted out the system.
It's a fair comment. But to get an estimate, we could get a price from anywhere, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those in favour of the £4,000. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Town hall maintenance.
So the work on the 2 rooms has now started. The plasterers are in this week. So I think they're in for the next 2 weeks. It should be completed in the next 4 weeks, just in time for the Blues, really. So, yeah. Other than that, we obviously, with the weather being as it is, we haven't had any additional problems with the town hall. So obviously just trying to ensure that the rooms are done and to a good standard. I do need to chase that again. It has been chased by various people, but we still haven't heard back. So yeah. the quote for the full re-roof of the town hall, just so we got an indication of realistically how much it will cost, and obviously how long, maybe because we won't want to have weddings, etc. So we'll need to know what kind of period we're looking at as to yeah. So
Word review, then think about tender or something. And schedules.
Yeah.
Any more questions on town hall maintenance? No. I take it that's what the polythene got floor downstairs for, then, for them in and out with.
Yes.
things. Yeah, I wondered what that was for this morning. So that one were only for information. Item 15. Item for a future month's agenda. Has anyone got anything?
Other than the grounds maintenance tender, which obviously was brought up last time, but that will come to us.
Yeah, there's 1 to 4, and then 10 to 5 was 1 and 4 taken together, weren't it? Then there's a separate grounds
6.
maintenance 6 in there. So the tender is going out for the whole lot of them. Yeah. Well, that needs to be done ideally before the November full council meeting, when we start making attempts to try and set some sort of a budget, so we know what preset we need. It's no good trying to complete that afterwards. And because of the size of the tender, it needs to go out for consultation for 6 weeks for anyone to answer, because it isn't something you can give somebody on a Friday and say, bring this back on Monday if you want to quote. So it's got to be done over the 6 weeks because of the size, because it's got to be registered anyway, hasn't it?
Usually a tender of that size would go on Contracts Finder, or so
it would have to go on there. But before we do that and put the tender out, we need to have, and we're trying to arrange a date for it, another meeting of the working group to see what they would like in an ideal world to add to the tender, because it's something that we should be doing and are not doing, which is probably quite a few things. And if in fact there is anything that we are doing that we don't really need to be doing, and that could come off it. So there's all that work to do, and then it'll have to come to FES so that we can get a draft tender to go out. I don't know whether the tender goes out, I can't remember whether the tender goes out straight from FES or whether the tender before it goes out goes to full council to be approved. I can't remember.
I think last time it did go to full council for approval.
Because it's size of it, yeah. And then it'll have to go out, and then we'll have to sit back and wait for 6 weeks to see what comes back.
Anything else for items for future?
No, I don't think so. We don't want to be loading too much onto FES, because they are going to have the tender to deal with, and for a couple of months at the meeting, it might take half an hour to do that on a couple of meetings. So that's like a quarter meeting gone into. Obviously, if there's anything that has to be done, it'll have to be done, and it'll have to go on agenda. But I think we need to leave some space on agenda, unless there's something really pushing that anyone wants to put on. The time and date of the next meeting is the 2nd of August. Now the meeting after that, I think, is when Gina's on holiday. Is it? I think it is.
No, it's not. I'm not actually. I go on holiday on the 6th of August. So I am here for the next meeting. I don't actually miss an FES meeting.
I thought you missed the September, the one at the beginning of September.
June the 6th, is that just-
Yeah, I thought you missed that. I thought you'd booked the last week.
I have booked the last week of the school holidays. But oh yes, it might be that one that I missed.
That's what I was going to suggest, is we move that back a week if you were away on holiday.
Right.
That's what I was suggesting.
I can have a look at it and then
Yeah.
I'll send an email out.
Yeah. There's little point having the FAS meeting without you there. Well, exactly. Yeah, we just have to write the questions down and, yeah. So if that is the case, we'll move it, but if that is the case, Gina, we'll move it back a week
Okay.
so that everything fits in. Next is to exclude the public and press.